being Clayton and Lindsay, and we should be having our engineer, Todd Pope, join us as well tonight.
Okay, excellent. And Tom, I know you've been here before.
Yes, I have.
Well,
Sure.
welcome.
I'm with Dirk on the apartment ground.
Okay, I thought
There's
so.
Todd. Okay, Mr. Chairman, if everything's working correctly, this is being recorded now and it's live on YouTube, so you can open the meeting at your convenience. I will, as I said before you got on, ask that we go rather slow comparatively because I'm taking the minutes notes as well as everything else. So
Okay.
if you'll go ahead at your convenience, it's 7 o'clock.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. If we get too quick for you, Jack, just speak up. The first order of business then is to approve the minutes from the February 19th meeting.
Yeah, actually,
February 9th, I see.
yeah, I'm going through, making sure everyone is here, and I see, instead of doing a roll call vote or roll call, I'm just going to visually see that I see every one of you here, check the boxes. So now we're now at the minutes, I'm sorry. Who made the motion?
Okay. Can we have a motion from someone?
So
To
moved.
approve the min- Who gave the motion?
Connor.
Connor, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. America.
Okay. I think Damien got
Connor
the
and the
jump on you,
mayor,
Melissa.
And this is a voice vote, so we don't need to call roll. All those in
Okay.
favor will be.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Let's go then to the staff report, Jack, and you can speak as slowly as you like.
Yeah, this I can speak quickly on. We are very busy. We have construction going on all over town. Made a post to kind of make it Facebook official that we have issued permits for a tenant finish inside the strip mall for a Domino's pizza carryout. And we also had issued a permit for Burger King on the north side of the entrance, over at the Marketplace Center.
You're kind of cutting out, I think, when you turn away.
Okay, I apologize. I'm writing notes as we go and someone's
understand.
knocking at the back door trying to get in and I
Oh, no.
can't do that. So we have both a Domino's pizza permit that's been issued for the south end of the strip mall on the Marketplace and the north side of the entrance road at the Marketplace, a Burger King has been approved. So we anticipate now that the weather was good, it's getting ready to get unconstructable here in a bit, but we anticipate construction will begin soon on that. We are about ready to go to the Board of Aldermen with the final plat for the subdivision up by the high school. They are going to be paving the roads soon. So that'll open it up for construction on that site. I anticipate they are shooting for next month to have a new conceptual plan up at the other Eagle by the other Eagle Heights that will be changing it substantially. Looks like removing all of the R2 and making it all single family, just changing the lot sizes a bit. All of this impacted because of, if you're not aware of what's going on in the retail or the residential market, construction costs are through the roof everywhere. So that's what I anticipate at the next month's meeting. And potentially, depending on, no, it'll be in May. We'll have a few more, set the initial zonings. I've gotten some applications for annexation out at that subdivision on the east side of town that we've been dealing with, Lakeside Crossing. And we had our in-person meeting with the building code auditor who rates us on how well we're doing. That meeting was a couple-hour long meeting going over all the documentation we previously provided. Anticipate something in the next couple of months, indicating whether we went up or down in our building code enforcement rating, which is part of the ISO system. So if you have any questions, we can proceed. Otherwise, that's all I have.
What's the estimated completion date for the Burger King?
I would imagine it's going to be a 6 to 7 month construction window. It's going to be a small drive-through, primarily drive-through facility, not a lot of seating in it. Just like similar to the Taco Bell is. Primary focus of a lot of these new fast food places, especially with drive-through, is in light of the last year anyway, is limiting the restaurant seating areas on those fast food places. So I anticipate that will continue.
Good. Anxious to try their new chicken sandwich. So
I have a question in regards to the type of new construction that we are seeing. Is there a saturation point for fast food establishments? I mean, are we going to turn into a town of fast food restaurants?
Well, right now, ultimately, that's going to be left up to the market. The market is pushing that real hard right now. Keep in mind, if you will, I think we have 9, maybe 10 gas stations. So we're not quite there on fast food places yet.
Local restaurants still outnumber chains.
So but I would anticipate now that and we'll find out here in another few months when the census data comes out, but I think the census data is going to really change how people see Smithville, because I know they know that we're 2019 estimated at 10,795, but I anticipate we'll be over 11 now with the remaining year and a half since that was evaluated. So that's going to put us into a new category, which is why I think all these places you're seeing are coming.
Yeah, the other thing, and I think Alderman Chevalier addressed this well on Facebook and a few others. You know, we provide the infrastructure. I saw Alderman Wilson weighed in on this as well. We provide the infrastructure. We provide our comp plan. We have plenty of survey data out there that says, you know, per capita what our restaurant number should be. And we'd love to have more local chains. We'd love to see local business plans submitted. But at the end of the day, we can't really restrict it. The lawyers would have a heyday with that one if we did.
Let me expand on that slightly. If we started trying to restrict that, the word gets out that we're restricting businesses, and then everybody's leery of coming. Ultimately, what we need to have is an environment that invites those folks. And I think with the comprehensive plan discussion later in the meeting, you'll see that we're getting ready to start down that path.
Yep. And one thing I do remind people, we did just pass a 0.5-cent sales tax. So any business generating sales tax helps support our parks and stormwater. But we are going to improve our parks regardless. So we are, as a city, our focus is those healthy lifestyles and outdoor activities. You know, business does the research and determines to pull a permit here, buy some land here.
Fast food, I would submit, Mayor, is not necessarily a healthy lifestyle.
There's nothing the city can do to restrict that.
I understand that. I got my answer. My answer. Thank you, sir.
I've got a
Okay.
question.
go ahead, Deb.
We're gonna get a Dairy Queen anytime soon.
Hey, Deb, you got a Dairy Queen?
Right
It's-
here, see?
Yeah.
Dairy Queen,
I don't see
DC.
it. I don't consider that one super healthy either. A lot of places that people were posting as healthy aren't healthy either. So that's all right. I get it.
It's my go-to de-stressor, so.
There you go. I know some people that have been working real hard on Dairy Queen, but that's a tough one.
Not here yet.
Not here yet.
Any other questions for Jack before we move on?
Yeah, one more. I
Go
do
ahead,
have one more. Jack, did you say that Eagle Ridge is not going to have attached homes anymore? It's all going to be single family separate?
No, I think if I said Eagle Ridge, I apologize. One that was called Eagle Heights.
Oh, okay.
Up by Wildflower.
Oh,
Are they
all right.
keeping it?
Understanding is they're going to change the name as well from Eagle Heights to Prairie something or other.
You
something.
probably did say Eagle Heights. I just transposed it to Eagle
which
Ridge.
is why I encourage them to change the name.
The one closer to Eagle Heights.
And you indicated they're all going, he's wanting to go just to R1, single.
Yep, all single family. Yes.
With a different overlay, right?
Yes, with an overlay with some density differences, size, lot sizes, setback size stuff. So this one will be a very interesting meeting when that comes, and they're shooting for next month.
Wow.
They've submitted their initial application paperwork in a timely manner, and we are now kicked it back with, give us all this additional information. So we'll
I guess if we're through with that one, this is probably where I need to ask. I reached out to Jack and asked the storage units south of town at Mitchell's. What we had approved at planning and zoning was enclosed units, and that's not what's happening right now. So I reached out to Jack to confirm that that's what we as a committee had approved and sent to the board, and it was. My understanding is they ran into some additional cost. Is that right, Jack, on
yes.
near the highway? So that kind of put them back on building as originally presented to us. And I will share that frustrated me because that's not what we as a committee had approved. Jack explained to me that by the zoning that is, that they're allowed to have this open storage at this point in time. I don't know that we need to look at the ordinance. I don't know, the conversation we had here on businesses coming to town to restrict it, that everything has to be enclosed going forwards. But do we need to look at the ordinance going forwards? If it's going to be open storage, solid fences, something to enhance the look when you drive by. So I just wanted to throw that out, that I was frustrated with this, that it didn't come back to us or even let us know of that change. So I think there needs to be some other communication there. So I want to leave this with this board, because this is probably going to be my last one, to take my concern and move forwards with it and discuss it and see what can be done.
Are you skipping next month?
Well, I'll
Still-
be out, right?
No, the third one is when the meeting.
Yeah,
is-
the third
Okay,
meeting
okay,
will be.
well,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm still gonna put it out here now that I don't want it dropped. I think it's something that we as a committee need to address of how to move forwards, because everything we're trying to do to beautify of these open storage units.
Yeah, I completely agree with Melissa. And, just like we did with fencing downtown, there's a lot of things we can look at there.
If I could, to clarify a couple of things, in the May meeting, when you are no longer on the Board of Aldermen, Wilson, you will still be a citizen. You can certainly come and express your concerns, and I fully anticipate you will. So
Well,
please
you know
do that.
me, we have history there. So yes, we know that I do. So I will be watching. You may not see me since there's Zoom. I can't come, or I guess I could. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there now, that I was very disappointed in where this has gone to for right now.
And if I will, to placate some of the concerns for the other folks, it is open right now. They are anticipating, now that the weather, well, our window looks like it's going to be bad again for a bit with all the rain coming shortly, but they are going to be performing the landscaping that was required for the buildings. They're going to be performing that along the east side and along the south side as required for the buildings. They just haven't gotten to it yet. But for our massive cold snap, I think they may have had some of that bigger stuff in. But now that we're hopefully out of the real bad frost stuff, they will be moving quickly on getting that together. Hopefully.
So they're still planning to do the building on the frontage, right?
They still have plans to do all the buildings. It's just right now the water line crossing kind of blew up the price a couple $100,000. So they had anticipated being able to connect to the existing water line on their side of the road, but it's not big enough for fire. So
So do we as a city keep track of that to make sure they follow through with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Do they still need the water line that they're not? Yeah, anyway, move on.
yeah, they don't need it now. The only reason they need it is if they build a building.
Yeah.
And that's what we approved, was the site plan for a building. And, you know, ultimately, if they can't get that done in 18 months, they'll have to come back anyway, because site plans without construction lapse.
Okay.
Thank you for your concerns, Melissa. I'm sure you've got that in the minutes, Jack, along with the other three things you're doing there. Anything else for Jack? Okay, let's move on then. In accordance with the agenda, I'm going to open the public hearing dealing with the rezoning of 319 East Main Street from R1B to R3. Do we have any citizens here that want to speak for or against this matter?
You have anybody, Jack?
To be quite frank, I'm somebody. Was it Todd? Maybe Todd Polk? Are you going to be, or somebody? I forgot one. Maybe it was Dan. Somebody was going to speak.
Yeah,
on
I just
behalf
wanted,
of.
right. I'm here with Clayton and Lindsay Cox, who
okay.
applied. And but I'm gonna let Todd speak to the project. He is our engineer on record. Will be available for any questions to the Planning and Zoning Board that you may have of us. So.
Before we ask questions, Todd, do you have anything you wish to say?
Sure. Just, in reading through the staff report that Jack put together was pretty concise. I think the important thing to note is that the adjoining properties along Main Street are also zoned R3. This has kind of become the island. It's the trend in this area that this is kind of where it's headed. So it's and the other important thing is that it follows the guides of the comprehensive plan. So having met all of the findings of fact, as Jack notified, it's clearly, it makes sense for this rezoning. So we appreciate Jack's work and we ask for your consideration. If you have any questions of us, we'll be happy to provide more information.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Polk or Daniel?
I don't have any questions, but I drove by and I'm glad to see this on the agenda to clean that up, and what I'm going to say.
Did
you open and close the public hearing already?
I did. Is there anyone else here that? Is there anyone else here that wants to speak? I don't think that we have anyone else here, do we, Jack? Okay, then I will close the public hearing now, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead.
I just saw the Angelina's iPhone. I didn't know if that was somebody that was here for public.
I am actually part of the public hearing for a different area
Oh, gotcha.
agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you for noticing.
Yep. So, Jack, you need a motion to approve the rezoning, right? As stated.
Actually, we need a motion in this scenario. Item number 5 will be the motion to approve findings of fact. And then after that motion and second is made, you guys feel free to discuss the findings themselves. You can, as we've done in the past, you can make a motion to amend any of those findings if you don't think the information meets that standard that's laid out. So we'll start that way.
I move to approve the finding as facts as stated for the rezoning of 319 East Main Street from R1B to R3.
Second.
Who was that, Melissa?
Yep.
Okay. All right, then let's begin a discussion on the first 8 items there, at least. Staff has given us these proposed findings. Does anyone want to discuss any of these findings? And we can amend anything we like
I personally am good with it. I'm like Melissa said, I'm glad to see this property getting something done with it, and we are in a need for a little density downtown, especially. So,
Any other discussion, questions on the findings of fact, conclusion of law? Okay, Jack, let's call the roll then.
and hear you, Jack.
Can you still not hear me?
It's
It's a little muddled. Go ahead. We're not hearing you at all, Jack.
He said Deb Dodson.
Rand, if you can make the call, I haven't changed anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening there, but can you try to call a roll call?
Yeah, it's because he moves and the Zoom loses his voice. So, Jack, if you want to try and start over and just face the camera.
I don't know about the rest of you. I'm not hearing him very well.
I'm not either.
I'm not.
I hear garble.
Okay.
Jack, throw it in chat if you can.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, it's going to bounce in and out.
Yeah, we're hearing you now, Jack. Go ahead.
Okay, Rand, if you can, in case this cuts out again, if you can look around the screen and all of the commissioners, call their name and I'll mark it yes or no.
Okay, we can hear you now. Give it a try, and if not, I'll be glad to do that.
Deb.
Hi.
Connor.
Hi.
Mayor Boley.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Dennis.
Aye.
Carmen.
Yes.
And Rand.
Aye.
Okay. This will go to the Board of Aldermen on March 23rd with a 7-0 vote in favor, a recommendation of approval. It'll have a first reading on the 23rd. Second reading would be, assuming it passes anyway, the second reading would go to the April 5th, Monday, April 5th date.
Okay. Let's open the second public hearing then, dealing with the rezoning of 15901 North 169 Highway from R1B and B2 to R3 and B3. Do we have someone here to speak for or against this action?
Angelina, if you'll take yourself off mute and speak.
I guess as we're looking at the notes here for the meeting, the main concern for us is the property that we have that is actually right here on Summit. So we come up on Summit.
Sorry,
Our
what?
actual addresses is 105, 103, and 101 West Summit. It looks as if.
Angelina, I'm sorry. Would you state your full name and your address first, please?
Yeah, my full name is Angelina Chittum. My address is 105 West Summit Street.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. So our main concern as residents of this area is based upon the general description of the property that we're seeing, an easement that we assumed was just a right away from the city that we've customly used. One of the houses there is from 1949 is showing up on the ownership of this property. So we're concerned about our right of way to our properties.
Okay. Jack, do you have any commentary for that?
Well, as it relates to public hearing aspect of it, my guess is that driveway has been there for those three houses for more than 20 years. A prescriptive easement at a minimum would have been created, so I don't think it can go away under the law. And ultimately, that would be up to the owner to to describe what their intent is in that area. If it's changing anything or not, I don't know. I'll leave that up to the applicant. But yeah, I think there's a prescriptive easement for the driveway access that would be sustained by a court no matter what.
Okay, and that's what we were under the impression of based upon anybody that we've talked to in regards to the situation. And that really was our main concern this evening. So just wanted to make sure that that was a known issue for at least the 3 residents that are accessed off of that road.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you.
Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. And then one last thing I have to note. I'm actually sitting down at the city hall, and I understand that we're in a COVID situation, but based upon the notes that were sent in a certified letter, it did state that we could be here in person. So I just want to make sure that that was called out, just for future certified letters that go out to residents in the community.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
All right.
typically, I think it also says to contact Linda Drummond to be sure that you can access City Hall. The chambers room is under construction, but we usually have somebody set up with the senior center or something else. But usually we have to get those as on the agenda.
Yeah, it doesn't say that we have to actually call her. It just basically says if you want to set up a Zoom meeting, you can contact her. So I just want to make sure that the verbiage was, known for future citizens who come down to City Hall and assume they could be here in person. But thank
And
you.
I will clarify, looking at the notice that Angelina was talking about, we used the original version, not the City Hall under construction version. So that was an error on my part. It was supposed to say only and it does say in person. So it was a little confusing on our part.
Yep.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Jack.
Anyone else here to speak during the public hearing on this matter?
I see the owners here and so if they want to give their testimony in the public hearing as to why this is appropriate.
Hi, guys. Am I off mute, Jack?
Yep, you're good, Dirk.
You're
Okay. Dirk Talley, 17270 Highway 169, Smithville, Missouri. So we're the owner of the project that's being proposed. We did hear Ms. Chittum's comment, and that was actually noted in the survey that it looked like that easement had never been perfected. We have no reason to not, to obstruct that, or so we'll be happy to clear that up in the project and perfect that easement. As far as the project, I think it's there were several notes made by Jack that this property sat vacant since what feels like, I guess, forever. I think what we're proposing fits the area. We're obviously going to be a little bit of commercial use, but mainly multifamily. It's close to downtown. So, think we're fitting the guidelines, and if there's any questions, I think both Todd Polk is here and Tom Pryor, who's working on this project, is here too, if anybody's got questions.
You're a regular here, Dirk. Welcome.
Thanks.
Anything else? Any questions for Mr. Talley?
I have a question for him.
Go
On
ahead.
R3, do you know yet what you're looking at as far as the structures themselves that would be going up?
We really, honestly, it's so early in the game, and I'm not even sure if I'm the eventual, developer of a project like this. It quite honestly may be a bigger project than what I would honestly tackle. But it's obviously apartment type housing is what we're focusing on.
I can appreciate that since it's so early. So thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Then let's close this public hearing. Also, staff has prepared a draft ordinance and findings of fact on this matter. And can I have a motion to approve the proposed findings of fact?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
who's that? Dennis?
Dennis?
Okay, Dennis. At this point, then, we can discuss the first 8 items and the findings. Does anyone have any discussion they'd like to make on this? Hearing none, let's have a roll call vote, Jack, if you can.
That's right. Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
I have a question before I do that. I just happened to look, there's probably a correction that needs to be made. The conclusions of law, are they still saying 319 East Main?
yeah, that I sent a supplement. I discovered
Okay.
that
Okay,
with our new word system on our computers,
okay,
I started a revision to 319 after I finished this one, and
okay. I
So,
didn't see that.
you
So,
have a
okay.
corrected version via email, and that'll be the one that goes out. To
Okay.
clarify, also, all of the 8 findings of fact in that document you're looking at in the packet are correct. It's
Okay.
the heading and the legal description in the ordinance that are all grouped up.
Okay, and aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Carmen? Carmen,
I'm sorry to say aye.
Aye.
Rand,
Aye.
7-0. It will go to the board on the 23rd, followed by a second reading on the 5th, assuming it passes.
Okay. Let's move on then to the next item on the agenda, the discussion of the comprehensive plan recommendations. Jack, why don't you outline that if you would?
What we really have a scenario is our comprehensive plan has, if you've had a chance to look at it since November, in the back, there are 2 tables that identify actions that we as a city take care of. Those implementation actions include some of the ones that I've identified in my report that I provided on this packet. There's a staff report document and several items in it. One of the items that we need to consider is, and it, as you can see from the applications tonight, one of the high priority and first 3-year plans was look at the dwelling unit size in the R3 district. Currently, the minimum dwelling unit size for an apartment, and if you got a 20-unit apartment building, is 900 square feet. The comprehensive plan recommends adjusting that. And when you look at the comprehensive, or when you look at our ordinances associated with dwelling unit sizes, they're all over the place. So I'll go through that here in a little bit as well. The first thing we need to look at is housing dwelling unit size to be quite frank, in all of our districts, so that we're clarified on what we're doing. It will also allow us to consider, maybe not in this first batch, but at some point, the tiny home concept, and how that would potentially work here in Smithville. And then the other aspect of it is lot sizes in the single family districts. We currently have a 100-foot wide single family district and a 75-foot wide single family district. And that's it. If anybody wants to have any size district or front yard than that, they have to go through the plan development process with the conceptual plan overlay. And that's generally a pretty cumbersome process. So when discussing this with the mayor, one of the things he wanted me to provide was for the discussion was, what do the other cities around the area do for this lot size scenario? So if you look in your packet, you'll see a spreadsheet that's got multiple colors on it. And that is a comparison of each of the local cities, the names of which are on the right side. So it's Kearney, Excelsior Springs, Liberty, Gladstone, and Raymore. Raymore simply because they are also booming and they're on the other end of Kansas City. But if you look, there's a fairly wide array of lot dimensions. When you see the dimensions, they're generally, it's the smaller numbers, the width, and the larger numbers, the depth. And you will see in most of the growing communities, there's a large option available, 40, 70, 90 in Excelsior. Kearney, similar to us. So it's not as, they're in the same boat we are. If you go to Liberty, theirs is 50 and 70 or 40. They've got all kinds of different, depending on what district you put it in. And then similar down in Raymore. Gladstones are all pretty constant, but Gladstone is a completely surround city and it can't really grow. There are usually a lot of options for what you put in those. The second thing I think you need to keep in mind is there's another spreadsheet that you have with your documents. I don't know if it's the next one in your packet or the third one, but it's the dwelling unit sizes. And all of those are our districts that lay out the dwelling unit sizes, what's required, what's not. You will see we have generally in the R1, 1,100 minimum square feet for a house. But none of those apply to the A1 district, the AR district, the R2 district. There are no dwelling unit size restrictions. But when you get to R3, comes back with a 900 on them if it's multifamily. And it gives an 1,100 square foot minimum on the single family, if you build single family on a R3 lot. So we have varying rules. So theoretically, if somebody was able to acquire a fairly large tract that is R2, they wouldn't have to worry about the lot size. They wouldn't have, or the unit size. They could build a 300 square foot building in the R2 unit district as a matter of right. So while it wouldn't be efficient to do something like that because the lot sizes still have to be massive, they all are in the same ordinance. The dwelling unit sizes are in the same ordinances as well. And the last item really that you have is a spreadsheet area and kind of what I would consider market in our market apartment sizes. So what I did is randomly pulled several apartment complexes in the metro area, with 2 of them down in the River Market area, 2 of them north of the river, 1 of them in Overland Park. And basically took the footprint size of all those apartments. And you'll see that all of them have studio apartments that are small. The average is 557 feet. The 1 bedrooms are 729 feet. The 2 bedrooms would be the only ones that would fit in our district of 900 plus feet on average. Or the 3 bedroom, I take that back. So at the end of the day, the meeting or the discussion point in the comprehensive plan is, should that or should that not be something that the developer of an apartment complex would consider? they don't usually want all 3 bedrooms. They don't usually want a single 1 bedroom. So in order to give them options like you see here, the consideration is, should we dismiss out the 900-foot requirement? Do you think there's a minimum requirement? So these are all items I think we need to discuss. And my intent is to have a general discussion, and then I will, if there's a consensus sufficient for me to draft an ordinance, I'll advertise it and bring it up for the next meeting. So with all of what I just said, if we could, I'd like for us to at least consider starting with the 900-foot dwelling unit size in multifamily. Do you have any thoughts, options, opinions on what would be best in that scenario for us?
My opinion on it is that we don't need a minimum. The market's going to set what, I mean, Dirk's still in here listening, and Todd's out there too. They're not going to build it if it's not going to rent. And having a 900 square foot minimum is pretty good size for a studio apartment. So
Mayor suggests no minimum in multifamily. Does anybody else have an opinion, thought on that?
Should I comment on this or no? This is Dirk.
Well, we'd
Go
love
for
your opinion. Go ahead, Dirk.
Yeah. So I guess kind of my thoughts on it. One of the projects that we really, really like is located down in Liberty. And I can flip through my pages, but it's
Copper Ridge.
Copper Ridge. There you go. Thank you. And so they have a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. And just exactly like, I guess, Mayor was saying and Jack was saying, that, you know, that developer kind of decided to mix what sizes, you know, would rent best. And I think, you know, having a 900 square foot studio, whether I'm the developer of that or not, is going to be pretty limiting on, you know, how they can design those buildings. So, yeah, I do think, you know, only because this is the first time in a project like this, but you can see from a developer's perspective, you came in and you were restricted to 900 square feet. It really limit what you did with the buildings.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it from, I'm trying to stop the brain drain from our high school, right? Kids graduate, they leave, they don't have an option really to rent something here. And if you're a 800 square foot minimum at $12 a foot, you're talking $800 rent or more. That's a lot to jump off just for a studio. And it's probably, that's a low end number. That's a not, you know, I'm sure construction costs right now aren't even going to get you to $12 a foot. So that's one of my primary, I mean, if you look around our restaurants, they can't staff right now. And I don't know that we have housing for folks that want to work there.
And if I can, Mr. Mayor, to expand on that a little bit, it's even more difficult. Even if we were able to get them built at that size, the price goes up because a developer can't get the density they need in a unit or in a building without making it massive. So it becomes even more difficult. And if they wanted to come down to varying sizes, like, you know, Copper Ridge or any of the ones that I pulled out there, they'd have to go through a conceptual plan process. They'd have to have every building laid out and designed so that this board could approve it in the conceptual plan process if they were going to vary that much from all of those items. So they have to have it in an R3 district. It's just so onerous. I don't think people will want to do it that much.
Yeah, and I'm only familiar with Copper Ridge. My if anybody's not familiar with the apartment complex, that's the new one they built in Liberty, right there across from like Curly Furniture. My brother-in-law is building a new house in Lawson. They couldn't find a rental, so they went there and they could find a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. But there's also studios, like Dirk said. There's all kinds of options there. So We get into that situation a lot. I know Dirk and Dan have both told me that as people are building these new homes, they sell their house quick in Smithville. They want a place to stay, having that option, but that's not what everybody's going to need. They're not all going to need 2-bedroom, 2-bath.
I got a question. If we were to set a minimum, would you look at like maybe 400, 350 for like a studio? What's the average size of a studio?
Well, the average, according to my limited sample, was 557 feet. But I see some of them down as low as 490. So, if it's a studio, if you're at 450 square feet, that's a pretty decent size one. But I can tell you from experience, there are smaller ones available. As it relates to studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. My guess is we won't have a whole lot of market for 3-bedroom apartments because of the cost associated with them and the like. But if you were down to 350 or 400, I think you would not run the market into a pickle.
I said that, like, we finished a portion of our basement and it comes out like 532 square feet. And I've got a separate like bedroom down there and a huge bathroom, laundry, and then the rest of it is just one great room. So there's a lot you could do, 530 square feet even. So I didn't know if we wanted to set a minimum of like maybe 400 or 450.
That's ultimately, the biggest issue, and I identify it in my report it well, is housing affordability. The mayor talked about it as well. In order for somebody to be able to rent these, a single, Smithville High School graduate that's wanting to go to work somewhere close, if they want to live by themselves, they got to be able to afford it. The only way they can afford it is if it's fairly small, because to build it, it's going to cost. That price isn't going down anytime soon. So the housing affordability really sets the tone on that.
Yeah, because you're talking still in the $100 a foot to build right now range, right? Dirk and Dan, from what you guys are. Jack sent out something I know recently.
I would say it's a little higher than that.
Yeah, like I thought Dan had said like 120 a foot, but yeah, still.
Well, we've got Dirk and Dan here. I would love to get their view. What do you two think about 450?
Dirk?
Okay, yes. I think, I think there's reason to maybe put a minimum in there somewhere. I mean, God forbid somebody comes in and builds 100 square foot apartments. I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean, I think you put some sort of a minimum, and whether that's, I would probably say a minimum of 400 square feet. But to Jack's point, if you guys don't have kind of these guidelines to follow, some would say, well, why didn't the developer just come in with this plan? Well, it's extremely expensive to even start the process of engineering, architectural drawings, and then not even know if the city, is going to allow it. So I think there's good reason that you guys kind of, I hate to say it, but I guess, we might be the first project that would make use of this new ordinance, but I would highly encourage you guys to kind of get those minimums down there. And so that when we're, whether it's us developing this project or the next guy, we know we're not just working foolishly against something that might not get passed.
Yeah. I'm fine with if we set it at like 400. That's you're putting it at about $50,000 a unit at that point.
I think 400 is a good number. What do the rest of you think?
I'm okay with that. Just based off of what I have downstairs, I can envision that and still being able to live nicely without being a sardine in a can.
And it makes 100% sense. One of the things I'd like to throw out to you, and I mentioned it in my report, and at the bottom of the dwelling unit sizes by district in Smithville, that spreadsheet, there's a bit of language in there that it specifically describes that there is a difference between multifamily as it relates to zoning code and multifamily as it relates to the building code. So if somebody wanted to build, a strip of townhouses, say 9 units or 10 units, they in the building code are considered single family dwelling units. So they would have to meet the single family dwelling unit minimum size, even though it's required in the multifamily district. For example, all of the units in Ashmont or Harborview townhomes, or even Clay Creek, all of those are considered under the code. They are all single family dwelling units under the building code. So they have to meet that 1,100 square feet minimum. And if somebody was wanting to do a bunch of 900 square foot townhomes with the same concept of an apartment, it would be simply a vagary of the building codes that it would trigger that they may have to have a bigger unit, even though it's a multifamily rental or whatever else, that they'd have to have a bigger unit size than if they did a 4-story building with all kinds of stuff in it. So you may want to consider the 1,100 square foot size if you're in the R3 district anyway. One of the base assumptions, if there's R3 districts, is that it's going to have more density. That's an assumed thought. That's going to happen. So if somebody's wanting to do a strip center, a strip type scenario, townhome type scenario, if they've got to do 1,100 square feet, that's also problematic because what they're trying to do is to reduce the cost of construction so that it becomes more affordable. And if they've got to do 1,100 square feet for a standard standalone detached single family home, that's pretty small, really. The smallest ones that we've had on 1 story are up in Lake Meadows, and they're 1,200. That's with an unfinished basement. They go up to 1,700 with finished basement. So, but if you're doing a townhome scenario, let's say you do something like that around here, that building would be huge in order to have a 10-unit complex. You're talking a 10,000 square foot building minimum, and that doesn't include the garage space if they're going to have a garage or any of the other things. So in the R3 district, I think you ought to consider the dwelling unit sizes. And then as you look through, you don't have minimum dwelling unit sizes on A1, AR, or the R2. The R1D, I suggest I wouldn't consider it because it's a manufactured housing district. It's a trailer park. So it's not really an issue. That's why there are no sizes on that. So I wouldn't anticipate that. But looking at the R2 district, same concept, somebody wants to put a duplex in a some facility, it's going to be a big duplex. If they're 1,100 square feet, they're going to be 3-bedroom and a bath at least. Unless it's 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and a bunch of extra stuff, they're going to be fairly large. And they can do whatever in the R2 district because that we don't have any restrictions there. So, ultimately, I think if we're looking at dwelling unit sizes, you have to consider what's the purpose of them up front. And where are they most appropriate? I would suggest to you that the A1 district and the AR district are not much different than the R1A and the R1B district, other than the amount of land they have. But you can have a big lot and a tiny little house on those. You can have a 300 square foot house if your land's zoned AR. But if you're in a tiny lot, a third of an acre lot, it has to be 1,100 square feet. So it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense the way things are structured.
Do you have a recommendation, Jack, on what might be optimum?
Looking at Jack's spreadsheet, I think somebody in Liberty really liked even numbers. They went to 864.
Yeah.
They just did a countdown, 864.
Yeah.
And I've sent you all a separate email. I drafted a proposed new district for lot size, but as it relates to dwelling unit, I haven't drafted anything. I wanted to kind of get a feel from you all. So from my perspective, if we're going to have dwelling unit sizes, I would suggest that A1, AR, R1A, and R1B at least consider having 1,000 or 1,100 square foot. If we do a smaller lot size, such as a 60 or a 50-foot lot size, and we'll get to that discussion in a bit, I would suggest that you consider doing something smaller than 1,100 square feet as well.
Yeah,
for the same reasons.
I like your recommendation on the A districts. They're built. I mean, some of them are going to build it that anyway. But on R3, I think we just go double what we have for the apartments and do 800 and look at something similar for the smaller lots when we get to that discussion.
And we can assume that all this discussion about density, our decision reflects a consideration for traffic and the ability of infrastructure to hold fast.
Well, ultimately, that's one of the benefits of our structure, Carmen. That is, you can do whatever you want on your land, but when you come in to divide it, one of the things we require is a traffic impact study. We require your sewer impact, and the developer has to pay for all these infrastructure improvements so that their development will fit. We'll work on our system. We got a new stoplight. I know it's a commercial project, but we got a new stoplight at Hospital Drive because of a traffic study for that commercial development. It was required by theirs.
Yeah, and if you look at like where the subdivision we approved, Eagle Heights, whatever it's going to be renamed to, if we go from a 75-foot frontage to a 50-foot, we're putting 3 houses where we had 2. From a sewer infrastructure and perspective, that's more revenue off that same pipe. We're still paying for a lot of pipe to get up there. It's 3 miles of sewer, and we need some density, a little more density than 10-acre lots up there, because that's a lot of force main. If you look at the sewer master plan we just published, that's a lot of dollars in the future that we're spending up that way.
Yeah, and we anticipate single family will be the preferred development up north. So single family homes, whether they be townhomes or whether they be single family attached townhome scenario, detached, whatever. And right now, you only have room in our sewer system for 605, I think, new houses that would attach to that force main before we have to do the $7.9 million project in 2020 dollars. That's a lot of money. So if we can make it so that the other costs to the city are, as the mayor indicated, not as expensive. If you've got 10 people paying for 1,000 foot of pipe for its maintenance and its repair versus 15 people, it ultimately gives you more revenue to fix and maintain the things that are out there.
Yeah. And also, I would argue that just like Carmen, where you're at in Ashmont, and some others that want to be in patio home type developments, you all probably have less traffic, because I know Deb's household has 1 vehicle they drive. They don't have 3 because they don't have a bunch of teenagers running in and out, right? We got you probably have less traffic because your retirees are not going to work at the same time as those type of developments are actually very beneficial to our infrastructure.
I understand. Go ahead, Carmen.
No, it's okay, Ann. Thank you.
I understand that side of it, but through the comp plan, I walked away from that with looking at the north section of not being high density. So from that standpoint, I would prefer to see the single family dwelling minimum size stay where it's at right now.
Do you want to add for R3? We probably wouldn't zone anything R3.
No, not R3, but R1, the R1A and R1B. Leaving.
Yeah, right now we're just talking R3.
Okay, so R3, I would be okay with that going down, like we said, to the 800.
That's the other thing is rezoning up north. We're probably from the comp plan. That's what we talked about. But if somebody wanted to do townhomes along 169 and they're doing R3, 1,100 square feet is probably a little much.
Well,
True.
I wanted to clarify, if I could, for Alderman Wilson, we are still on the dwelling unit size versus the lot size.
Right, so I would be okay under R3. Yeah, I kind of went on, but
And I think
800.
Yeah, and I think, Jack, your recommendation on the ARs, the A1s, the ones that don't have a minimum, I think we should do a minimum of 1,100, because you're right. You know, we could get a house that comes in on a 10-acre lot that's the size of a postage stamp on a 10-acre lot, and then they throw up some barns and some Morton buildings and other things that are ag. But do we really want a farm in that northern zone too, right? If we were doing 3 and 5 acre lots, they're looking more estate lots, not mini farms.
Right.
You could put a tiny home on a 5 acre lot and have a mini farm.
Well, the other aspect of it, we haven't discussed it too much, is if you've got an R2 zoned lot, you can do it now. You can put a tiny home there. If you have an R3 zoned lot, you build a duplex, you can do 300 square foot unit, the way it's set up. So I would suggest that we consider, in addition to doing the 800, 400 in R3 and bringing the 1,100 across for single family dwellings in A1, AR, and all the R1 stuff, be for R2, we consider a dwelling unit size that's a little smaller as well.
Okay. Well, when we say smaller, what do you all think on that?
Something under 1,100 feet. Anybody have a thought?
Well, I thought maybe just halfway in between, maybe 900.
And that would be if they did a single family home on that. They went to a duplex, a true duplex, if they maintained the 900 square feet, then, because currently, like I said, they can do whatever, but most of them are doing 1,200 square foot plus. So they're really big duplexes. That may not be where the market ends up. But if we did a 900 square foot per dwelling unit in the R2 district, that would be an 1,800 square foot for a duplex, or 900 for a single family detached house. That would.
If we might, Dirk and Dan, do you have any commentary on this? We want to milk you for your experience here.
Dirk, do you want to go, or
Go ahead, Dan. I'll stand up by here.
Yeah. So we're talking about the square footage of these ADUs, correct, Jack? Is that?
Yeah, yes, we're speaking specifically of the dwelling, the habitable space in a dwelling unit. So it doesn't include the garage, it's where you live, bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchen, the like. So it's the square foot of that.
Okay, he mentioned ADUs. Are we talking additional dwelling units, or are we talking actual single family homes?
Well,
I don't think we're bringing up ADUs yet.
Yeah, well, because here's the other aspect of it. If we're talking the ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit, the granny flats or whatever else, they would have to be regulated in a completely different manner. And that would only apply in the A1, AR, and any single family residential district. Because you can do an accessory dwelling unit currently in an R2 district. It's a matter of right. So it would only be in a single family.
So Dan, really kind of Dan and Dirk, what the question was is kind of what's the market looking like on smaller home sizes? Is it 800 or 900 square foot minimum more desirable than having 1,100 square feet minimum on a duplex or townhouse from a building perspective and cost of materials?
Market.
Go ahead, Dan, if you want to comment.
Okay, so this has been something that the National Association of Realtors have talked about at great lengths across the country, especially for those places that have more density in housing. But bringing it back to home, if you will, to Smithville or to the area in our residents, I think there's a beginning to have a popularity in the sense of people, there's minimalists, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that they don't need the larger square footage of homes. And so they're okay with smaller living quarters because they want to be more outdoors, more trail-like. They want to travel. And so there is some demand that I believe will come forth here in the near future, if it's not already here.
And Dan, what was the number per square foot you sent us on the building cost right now?
So last year's number, and you know, this has significantly changed. We pulled the the Kansas City Association of Realtors of the homes in Smithville specifically. It was $145 was the average. Sitting next to a builder here and going through the cost of materials, we are probably closer to 160, 165 right now.
So 160 on a 800 square foot, you're talking 130,000 just to build it, not land, not anything else, just materials.
That's correct. Yeah, he's verifying that. Our builder here is verifying that.
Yeah. So to get below a $200,000 price point, even on a duplex, we're not going to get it there at 1,100 square feet.
Mhm.
Yeah, Damien, that's a good point. And I think what you guys are, what we're all wrestling with is, what is the demand coming for Smithville? It's probably different than what it has been in the last 10 years. And, our new project coming is, we had never really even considered this in the last 20 some years that I've been in town. But you're right. I think giving that developer the freedom to, as Damien said, build to the market, build what the market demands, and let it go from there.
And I think it's important to understand the structure of our regulation. We have, if we have an 800 or a 900 square foot minimum, it doesn't mean that every house or every unit in R2 is going to be 900 square feet. It means that if you want to build that small, you can. But you can still build the 1,500 square foot individual unit in a duplex and have 3,000 square foot of housing. You can do that if you want. But what you can't do right now is build the smaller size, at least in some aspects of it. So if you guys are interested as it relates to it, the dwelling unit sizes of 1,100 in single family, and when you get to R2 going to 900, then in the R3, 800 if it's an independent single family unit, or 400 if it's in a multifamily storied building. That's an easy enough draft. I can get that stuff drafted together rather quickly. If that's where you think we can stomach going or think it's in our best interest to get there. Any thoughts on that?
I think that sounds good. Is there anything else that you need a recommendation on from us, Jack, on that?
Not on that. The dwelling unit size is one issue. The secondary issue is lot sizes. And I sent you all an email with a draft, and if you want, I can pull it up on the screen. Sorry. Should be able to if I knew how to operate. I'm going to share my screen. This. Okay. This is in the structure, and you have this via email if you want to look at it yourself. At the top up here, In our R1A district, and I did not include A1 or AR districts because none of this applies, but yet, based upon what we just talked about. But the lot area is 10,000 foot with 100 foot of road frontage, and 1,100 square foot with 10-foot side yards. Same thing for our R1B, which is our standard single family stuff, 75 foot frontage, 1,100 square feet, side yard 7.5 feet. I drew out a proposal that was real easy. 175, I went to 60, and that would be 6,000 square foot lot, 60 feet of road frontage, and 880 feet in that district, given the same percentage changes for what you're talking about on the building size. I think you could certainly keep the dwelling unit size at 1,100, and it would change the look of the building a little bit to get it to fit. But in a 60-foot wide lot with 6-foot side yard setbacks, which are they all meet the building code standard. You don't want it to be less than 5, or you got to do extra fire blocking. So you can get, that's a fairly wide house with the current plans. If you've got a 52-foot wide buildable area, a 48-foot wide buildable area for your house, a 40-foot wide building plan would fit pretty well on one of these. And it gets you less land costs. That's another thing that in Smithville is very expensive, is land cost. So this is an option. The mayor mentioned 50 feet. And then in the spreadsheet that has all of the other districts or other communities around us, they have, like I said, 40, 70, 90, 50, 40, and 70, 60, 70, and 125, kind of all around. We just have the big wide lot stuff comparatively.
Yeah. Like I told you earlier, Jack, and I mentioned this earlier, I'm fine with 50 or maybe even a little less, and possibly dropping the square footage requirement even on these. Because when you think about it, and even my neighbors in our subdivision have had this happen, is you're responsible for that sidewalk. You're responsible for everything on that yard. And we have, some places that you got code issues because you can't get out and mow your big yard, or, your sidewalks are cracking and can't get it fixed because you've got a lot of responsibility there. And when it comes to an overall home affordability situation, we need to do something better than 75 for a minimum, or 100, or any of those.
And ultimately, if you decide to create a third one, or even a third and fourth one, however, the benefit is the Planning Commission gets to address, I think, some of Alderman Wilson's concerns during that request to rezone. Is it an appropriate area for 50-foot wide or 60-foot wide lots? Is that an appropriate area? So that concept comes out during those discussions of the actual zoning to that district. I would recommend that the base model stay at R1B, but we also have the bigger stuff and we have the smaller stuff. If we go that way, the R1A district, a developer may want to do that if they literally want to have more expensive homes, bigger houses, because one of the items I think that you're talking about, you got $160 a square foot to build a building, but what's it cost to buy a lot? If you're buying a lot and it costs $70,000 to buy the lot because it's 7,500 square feet, it's going to be real hard to get a house built under $250,000 or $300,000 with that lot cost. So that's the other housing affordability way to attack this, is to reduce the lot size the developer can get more lots sold in a development that has a fixed amount of cost for water, sewer, stormwater, street, it means the lot cost goes down. We had that discussion, if you recall, a year or so ago up on Eagle Ridge when they came back in because their costs went up in the construction so much that their lot cost was going to be like $75,000 for a single family, 150 for a two family. That was just the cost to go through where they were at, plus their markup, obviously. But you can only cut your markup so much if you want to stay in business, and that's the housing affordability part of this. Where you all feel comfortable with. I know the mayor's spoken up, and I will shut up and let you guys talk. If you have any specific questions, I'll certainly go over those too.
Connor, I know you're on turned your camera off, but you guys recently moved up here. You're closer to the younger demographic than most of us on this call. Well, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's tough for me to say holistically. I definitely like what Jack has proposed here. I honestly don't have much more to say. I think this is one I definitely need to think on some more.
So, I mean, when you were in the market for a house, were you looking for a estate lot, or were you looking for? I mean, were you looking for something that was an older, smaller lot home? And because I think you guys are near Maple, right?
Yeah, we are. And honestly, I would have leaned more to a larger lot if I was able to afford it. But based on our location, I was really pleased with the size of our lot. Like it fit our needs to the T. And I don't know if I can put it into the exact feet that is here, but if you can imagine where I live right by Maple, it fit exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah, Jack, those are older. Those were zoned outside of the city originally, right?
Yeah, and a lot of those lots are 90 feet.
So they're small. They're smaller than the 100. Okay.
Yeah, well, but they're bigger than the 75 for our standard subdivision today. Those lots, a lot of them are 90 feet.
What about downtown near Heritage Park and in that area?
They're all over the place. Most of them are 60 in the downtown area. Those standard lots are 60 foot. But we also have blocks with 40-foot wide lots. And we have blocks with 50-foot wide lots in the downtown area. Again, all over the board.
Which
by
the comp plan, downtown and south of downtown is the density, right? Where these would pertain to, right?
Well, to be quite frank, I think they could go wherever the planning commission approved the zoning level for it. But ultimately, I think the real high density stuff that the comprehensive plan talks about is south. And then the medium high density is around downtown. I don't think they're looking to have, 45 units per acre in the downtown area. But, certainly 18 is in the range that they were talking about of what the comp plan talked about. So, and, some of it's impacted by whether you're adjacent, or if the road you're getting on is a new road you're building that's connects on to, say, commercial, or if where you're building connects directly onto 169 or onto 92, or any of the bigger roads. When you throw in a lot of density and traffic, then you need better roads around it. We would certainly, as a city, require it. In order for a developer to do it, they'd have to have land for that density, your real high density stuff. So that's why I think the plan calls for putting the real high density stuff. But downtown can certainly handle it, to be quite frank. If you get into fairly high density, I don't think you're going to have the 800 unit apartment complex. You know, like some of them you have down there by Costco and the like. Some of those are rather large complexes. I don't anticipate any of that up downtown, but if you've got them further south, it would make sense. But the real question for me is, you know, would you guys like to consider this would be a R1C at 60 feet. I could certainly draft up another one for R1, do a different one and do R1D at 55 feet or 50 feet, if that's where you all wanted to go. And it would simply be readjusting the names of, you know, the current R1D, which is the manufacturing. I would change that name. Nothing else in it would change the name to move it out, but that would give us the ability to put in more options. Obviously, all subject to planning commission review of when somebody wants to do the zone.
I don't know, Dan or Dirk, if you're following this, but I'd be very interested in your opinion here.
Same here.
So this is Dirk. Jack, what is your opinion? If you look through like Liberties, I always like kind of following areas that seem to have developed well and look well after they are developed. But what is your opinion of Liberty's use of all these guidelines?
To be quite frank, Liberty kind of looks at it slightly different. They actually have a density in their design. So they look at it slightly different, but you know, they have options depending on what the district is. It can go down to a fairly small. They really focus, to be quite frank, they really focus on the density of units per acre and the setbacks from the road. That's how, so it's a different texture of how you would handle it. Excelsior has something similar. Raymore has something similar. But yeah, I mean, they have options and I apologize. I said Liberty. I meant Kearney. Liberty has all kinds of options, 40s and 50s and 70s and etc. But they also have some dwelling unit per acre discussion in theirs. We discuss it in a kind of a different structure, which is our comprehensive plan talks about where we want the density, not what district allows density. So we don't have a density requirement in any aspect of our zoning code, but our comprehensive plan says the high density stuff stays south, the medium high density stuff can go downtown. And it gives ranges for all of those, what that means per acre, et cetera. So I will tell you in areas of Kansas City and areas of Liberty, they give themselves options and then they regulate it by the zoning hearing. Because if somebody wants to put a 50-foot wide lot in an area, and when the planning commission goes through those 7 items in the findings of fact, those are the issues that are discussed. Are the public utilities adequate? What's the character of the neighborhood? Ultimately, all of those things, would it detrimentally affect the property next to it in a heavy-handed way that it would make all those homes worthless, that kind of thing. So all of those get weighed during the process. It basically gives developers flexibility to try it without having to, like you said, Dirk, completely design everything. They don't have to design everything. The buildings and the like. In a lot size scenario, it gives them the ability to figure out a price point. Here's what I can get. If I get a 60-foot wide lot, I can make this many lots with what it's going to cost for water, all my utilities. And it also doesn't require them to go through the comprehensive or the conceptual plan process, which is a, fairly significant. You got to give a lot of detail, and here's what we're talking about, and all those things, which is similar to having to design the whole thing in advance. Before you know whether it's going to get approved, that's
Right.
That's your concern, obviously, is don't want to go spend a whole lot of money on a great idea if you don't think it's got a chance of passing.
Right, and that's, I think the engineers left, but we would take a little poke at him. But I mean, they are, it's extremely expensive to work on a project, design it, engineer it, and then not know whether it's going to fit. So I think, I know you guys have had a lot of discussion tonight, but just getting a better path forward so that when a developer, comes in, starts spending money, conceptual wise, he knows, okay, here's where it fits, and let's go pursue the land in this area.
Thank you. Dan, do you have any commentary?
Just concur with Dirk. We're always keeping an eye out as land developers and for our builders, what makes sense based on the comprehensive plan that's before us. And I think that anything that can help complement the comprehensive plan specific to what you're working on as a planning and zoning board can't hurt. It really can't hurt at all, because we've got a big job ahead of trying to build housing, develop land. And, this is more for residential right now, but commercial as well. It fits in all areas. I hope that answers
I appreciate that. You two are a great resource here. So then, having heard what you just said, it seems to me like your proposal here, Jack, is sound then. 60 feet width for the R1R and 50 for which district?
I would reorganize the way it's set up. We've got R1A and R1B in place now with 175. I could do an R1C at 60 and an R1D proposal at 50. And then the current R1D, I would just change it to R1M manufactured housing, so we wouldn't have any confusion. And then it would still give developers the option to go through the conceptual plan process so that they can lay out their own adjusted settings and side yards and front yard setbacks and all of those things, so that they can address it how they want. If they've got the options, they can do it. And I can certainly draft this and have it for the next planning commission meeting. And at that meeting, it is required to have a public hearing on the actual zoning code change, not the district change, the zoning codes. So I think that gives, like what Connor was talking about, gives each of you and the public a little more time to think about it, and then come back with more specific concerns, questions, issues as it relates to what the proposal is in the April meeting, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm good with that. Does anyone else feel differently?
I got a question. I was trying to follow this and I was doing some other reading in our emails and stuff. I had to sign back in and I hadn't looked over this, Jack. So with what you're proposing here, when it comes to the finding of facts, would they stay as they are now, or would we have to do more detail and discussion?
Well, ultimately, anytime the planning commission wants to discuss it more detailed, certainly recommend that, especially, for example, if we had the R1C that you see on your screen, and somebody wanted to put an R1C district somewhere in town. If they wanted to go that direction, the planning commission would have to really look at those 8 items that we weigh to see, is that district appropriate there? Is it going to bring too much traffic? is it out of the character of the neighborhood? So that's how you get to that weight of saying, no, we don't want R1C in that area. So you don't lose, what you don't lose is you don't lose the ability as a planning commission and ultimately to the board, you don't lose the ability to control what zones they go in or what zones go where. But what it does do is it opens up the opportunity for developers to do more innovative housing concepts. And when you come like Dirk did today and Dan brought forward for Clayton on his other one there, they brought forth the zoning only. They haven't gotten into the expensive engineering side of it and all that stuff. They got the zoning. If it ultimately passes on April 5th for both of them, now they can start spending the money, but they were able to get the base zoning figured out up front. The cost for them to do that, is minuscule compared to what it is when you start getting engineers and architects and all that involved as it relates to some of the other aspects of it.
So I guess what I'm really asking, would the finding of facts, like we've always been able to discuss it, I get that, but would this add more, possibly more to those discussions?
Oh, I certainly think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we don't have that many options, so it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to be putting a house just like yours next to you. Is that going to cause a problem?
No.
That's
so that's where I'm going to say this. I really like how ours is set up right now. Personally, when it comes, it's just pretty cut and dry. This is it. So I think it could become more challenging setting on this side of it with what could come forwards. Does that make sense?
Sure. Absolutely.
So that's where I'm trying to really wrap my head around, is this the route we want to go? Okay, that's fine.
And ultimately, Melissa, from my perspective, what it does is it provides more power to the planning commission to differentiate in a sieve of which size houses, which size lots can go where.
Okay.
Because the easiest defensible thing from a planning commission and a board of aldermen decision is a rezoning denial. It's so easy to defend. So if you give yourself the opportunity to say no, you may be surprised in that one. I like that. Or that's an appropriate area. Let's put it there. And what it does is it lessens the cost to the developer, which ultimately means the end product's cheaper. Because if a developer's got to spend $150,000 in engineering and the like to get something passed and ready to go, and then they start construction, that 150 goes into the sale price of each lot.
Yeah.
Now they can do it for 10 in the appropriate area. The planning commission sees as appropriate.
So I just want to make sure, am I understanding this correctly, that with this, that opens up a wider area for us to say no instead of yes?
It gives you the opportunity to say no. For example, if somebody wants to put an R1B subdivision next to an existing R1B subdivision in our current code, it's really difficult to say no to that, because it's exactly the same. It happens. We've done it in the past, but it doesn't mean that it's inappropriate, or if somebody's wanting to put a 50-foot wide lot next to a 100-foot wide lot subdivision, that may cause a little bit of concern.
Okay.
And that's where the guys can get creative and say, well, here's how we would want to buffer in this way.
Okay.
So there's more planning to the zoning.
Absolutely. More planning, more thought.
Good. So is everyone good then with Jack drafting this proposal to be brought forward later?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Jack.
I will have it ready for you to discuss at the next meeting. Sorry, trying to figure out the right button to hit to stop share. I will have a draft of all of the district changes that we've discussed on dwelling unit size in the lot size districts, to create new districts. And that will also be advertised to the public for a public hearing. It does not mean it has to be voted on and approved at the next meeting, but it means that we will start the discussion at a more robust level, and it can go to the board following the April meeting if you guys are fine.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Jack. We appreciate all this effort and also the contributions of all of you tonight.
Yeah, Jack, thank you very much for all this research. And I want to thank all the commissioners, because when Jack and I first started talking about this, because this is part of our comp plan and strategic plan, these are items that did come up. And I know in the past when Jack has brought this up, it was a quick, short, we're not going to do it discussion. So thank you for putting thought into this. And thank you, even Connor, with, hey, you need more time to think about it. I get it. I've been thinking about this for months because of the comp plan. So yes, you need more time to think about it, but reach out to your peer groups, make sure people know we're talking about this, because it was a big topic in the comp plan surveys.
Yes.
It was.
And I should have a draft by
I would
Monday or Tuesday of
personally-
next week.
I would
Go ahead, Carmen.
I would personally like to thank Mr. Hartman and Mr. Talley for being here. I realize that it is probably a voluntary situation, but I would encourage, well, for me personally, it really helps to have the people with the dog in the race giving us guidance and counsel. I wouldn't expect you to know how to put a person to sleep. You wouldn't expect me to be able to build a house or that kind of thing. And thank you very much, both of you, and hope to see you again at the next meeting. You're
Thank you,
very
Tom.
helpful to be here.
Absolutely agree with that. Your comments were invaluable to us.
Yeah, I'm going to sign off here, guys, but I'll say as a resident of the community and developing in the area, I have appreciated what this board and the city's done over the last couple of years. It's been more progressive than we've ever seen it. And I know there's going to be a lot of changes and some heartaches with those changes of our community. But anyway, you guys got kind of a thankless job, but appreciate all your input. I'm going to sign off. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good night. We're right behind you. Can anyone make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. Second.
Who was second?
Was that you, Deb?
Deb.
Yes.
It's a voice vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any no's?
No surprise there.
Yeah. Seeing none, meeting's adjourned until 8:37. I will get you a draft of that ordinance that we've just discussed. It'll be substantially longer than you would think, but I'll get that to you hopefully by Monday or Tuesday of next week. So you'll have time to think.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Aye.
All right.
I have to figure out how to turn it.